Committees at work. The first report of the Joint Select Committee on Land and Physical Infrastructure. A continuation inquiry into the measures for ensuring water security in Trinidad and Tobago. The Committee on Land and Physical Infrastructure is one of the standing departmental select committees of Parliament. The committee is mandated to inquire into areas related to land, agriculture, marine resources, housing, public utilities, transport, and works. The committee works this way. An issue engages the attention of the committee. The committee investigates the nature and causes of the issue. The committee makes recommendations to relevant agencies on how the issue may be addressed. The committee engages in follow-up activities to hold relevant agencies accountable for the commitments made in response to recommendations. The Committee on Land and Physical Infrastructure recently completed its report on water security in Trinidad and Tobago. The UN Water defines water security as the capacity of a population to safeguard sustainable access to adequate quantities of acceptable quality water for sustaining livelihoods, human well-being, and socio-economic development, for ensuring protection against waterborne pollution and water-related disasters, and for preserving ecosystems in a climate of peace and political stability. At the time of the inquiry in March 2020, the Water and Sewerage Authority of Trinidad and Tobago, WASA, was facing a myriad of issues. Among them were an aging porous pipeline infrastructure which contributed to leakages and wastage, and some communities did not have access to pipe-borne water supply, while others did not receive an adequate supply of pipe-borne water. The committee therefore commenced an inquiry into the measures for ensuring water security in Trinidad and Tobago in the 5th session of the 11th Parliament, but was unable to complete its work due to nationwide health and safety measures implemented to combat the COVID-19 pandemic and the dissolution of the 11th Parliament. The committee decided that it was essential to pursue its continuation inquiry in the first session of the 12th Parliament on 17th December 2020. The objectives of the inquiry were to examine the current strategies for ensuring water security and the effectiveness of these strategies, determine the measures required for improving water security, and determine the challenges with ensuring water security in Trinidad and Tobago. Here are some of the findings of the committee. The committee had several findings on the topic of water security strategies. There is need to reduce the current per capita consumption of water by 60 to 70%. There is need to increase water storage, including pump storage facilities, to deal with shorter duration of higher intensity rainfall. The Meteorological Office is unable to determine specific regions or catchments where, in terms of rainfall trends and patterns, rainfall harvesting can be optimized. WASA is unaware of efficient and practical methods for reducing evaporation at impounding reservoirs and is dependent on the annual wet season to replenish reservoirs. And new security procedures, including technological solutions to detect, monitor, and prevent security breaches, are needed. The committee's recommendations for these particular findings were that the Water and Sewerage Authority examine areas where storage can be increased, including pumped storage facilities, to treat with inadequate or shorter duration of intense rainfall. That the stakeholders involved in water security collaborate to conduct a study to determine the regions or catchments where rainfall harvesting can be optimized. That WASA engage in research to determine efficient and practical methods for reducing evaporation at impounding reservoirs. And that the Water and Sewerage Authority explore and implement new security procedures and technological solutions to detect, monitor, and prevent security breaches. A second finding of the committee was on the issue of climate change. Climate change will exacerbate the existing situation as it pertains to the level of contamination in the waterways. The adaptation measures or the approaches to reducing these risks of pollution would lie in the various agencies responsible for pollution control. There is need for a collaborative effort towards minimizing the negative effects of activities that pose significant threats to watercourses, which ultimately impacts on water availability, quality, and flooding. And it is challenging to differentiate climate change impacts from developmental impacts. On these findings, the committee recommended that particular attention be paid to the impact of climate change on water resources, that the stakeholders involved in watershed management examine, discuss, and implement innovative and the necessary mechanisms to protect watersheds. Priority should be given to watersheds located in the Caroni River Basin, given that it is most susceptible to climate change impacts, and that the Ministry of Public Utilities consolidate their efforts with all stakeholders with responsibilities regarding the pollution and the sedimentation of watercourses and establish a collaborative framework to address this growing challenge. Another issue unearthed by the committee was the Water and Sewerage Authority's bill to desalcut. The committee found that WASA incurred a deficit in revenues from rates received because a greater percentage of water purchased from desalcut is directed to domestic customers. And there is a high level of inconsistency between the rates paid for water from desalcut distributed within the Point Lisas industrial estate as opposed to domestic, commercial, or industrial customers outside the estate, which is affecting WASA's revenues. On these two findings, the committee recommended that there be a review of the use of desalinated water supplied by desalcut to ensure industrial water security in light of the high cost of this water to WASA and the inability of WASA to fully utilize the water supplied by desalcut within the Point Lisas industrial estate. It is hoped this will generate the revenues necessary to balance the cost of purchase paid to desalcut. Wastewater was another of the major findings of the committee, and several points were highlighted. Once wastewater is properly treated, it can be recycled for agricultural, industrial, or even potable water use. Many people may not accept the use of treated wastewater from sewers to taps. Currently, wastewater from WASA's Betham wastewater treatment plant is discharged into the environment. Larger plants, such as the San Fernando and the Malabar plants, are being considered for potential wastewater reuse plants because they are less challenging. A cost-benefit analysis, which includes the examination of social and environmental components, is key to assessing reuse potential if the authority proposes to pursue wastewater reuse as one of the main avenues of new water. And in considering the use of the Betham wastewater treatment plant, the market demand for reuse water and the cost of reuse treatment should be considered. The recommendations were as follows: that consideration be given to the use of small to medium-sized plants in addition to large plants for treated wastewater reuse. That consideration be given to the reuse of wastewater from WASA's Betham wastewater treatment plant for industrial and other alternatives. That a cost-benefit analysis be conducted for significant wastewater treatment plants inclusive of the social and environmental components in order to assess the reuse potential of treated wastewater. And that in determining the best use of the Betham wastewater treatment plant, that an examination be conducted to determine the market demand for treated waste reuse, the cost of wastewater treatment for industrial reuse, and other alternate uses. The committee found that truck-borne water service was a substantial issue and noted several findings. There is a deficiency in water tenders available to municipal corporations to effectively provide the truck-borne water service given the number of water tenders available and the number required based on the number of households and the weekly quota to be supplied to each household. The water tenders service does not appear to be a short-term measure, but rather a mid-term to long-term measure. The municipal corporations are facing severe fiscal challenges to meet the needs of communities that require the water trucking service. There is a need for a collaborative approach to be taken to address the issues involving the water trucking service and for a priority and urgency to be given to the subject. Approximately $11.6 million is required to supply these communities with a truck-borne water supply. The issue of funding has to be addressed by agencies responsible for disbursing funding to the corporations. The corporations received cuts in their allocation in the budget for fiscal year 2021, and emphasis is placed on certain emergency situations. The committee had these recommendations: that the municipal corporations establish a coordinated mechanism where available resources for the truck-borne service that is not being used in a municipality can be used to assist another one with communities that are in need of a truck-borne water supply, particularly during the dry season. That there be timely releases from the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government and the Ministry of Finance for the truck-borne water distribution. And a major topic brought up by the committee was WASA's standards for resurfacing of roads. The committee had several findings. WASA acknowledges that it has not been meeting the Regulated Industries Commission's standard for road repairs. A development program of works is required where one entity follows the other, and the priority of some entities involved in road repair may not be the same as WASA's. The recommendation was that the Ministry of Works and Transport establish a development program of works for road reinstatement and share the same with relevant entities. Follow-up work to be conducted by the committee. The Joint Select Committee on Land and Physical Infrastructure will monitor the activities of the Water and Sewerage Authority and evaluate whether these recommendations are completed in a timely manner. The committee will also follow up with the Ministry of Public Utilities to ensure the implementation of strategies regarding the improvement of water security.